Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Sencast and the managing director of B Squared. If you are a new listener, then welcome to the Sencast. The aim of the podcast is really simple. We want to reach lots and lots of people and help everyone learn more about special educational needs and disability. In this episode, we discussed FOP. I won't pronounce what it stands for because I couldn't in the podcast. But it is a rare, very rare genetic condition you are born with, even though it may not be diagnosed until later. FOP is just one of many rare conditions that will require support in schools. My guest this week was Nicky Muller, a former trustee of FOP Friends and the mum of Isla, who was diagnosed with FOP as a baby. The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared, and we are here to help schools to show the small steps of progress pupils with SEND make. And we cover a wide range of abilities and ages across England, Scotland and Wales. If you are a primary school struggling to show progress or show progress from starting point, we can help. And did you know you can use B Squared's assessment software for more than just pupils with SEND? You can now assess all pupils in one system, one inclusive assessment system, saving you time and money and simplifying the whole process around data and showing progress. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through our assessment software. Let's get on with that podcast. My guest this week is Nicky Muller, a former trustee of FOP Friends and the mum of Isla, who has FOP. Nicky and Isla are advocates for FOP and have been raising awareness in lots of places, including News Round and This Morning. And today, the day we release this episode, is FOP Awareness Day. Welcome to the show, Nicky.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
You are very welcome. Now, before I did my research for this episode, I had never heard of, I've got to take a run up on this one, Fibrodysplasia Ossificans Progressiva, or FOP, which I'll be calling it for the rest of the episode, for short. And FOP is one of a number of rare conditions that professionals in schools may or may not at some point encounter in school. So let's start with, what is FOP?
Yeah, so FOP is, as you say, a very rare condition. So Isla is 1 in a million. And it is also incredibly unique. So what happens is over time, your muscles, ligaments, connective tissues, tendons turn to bone. And this happens progressively. And you don't know how it's going to kind of work. You know, you could be fine for years, or you could end up getting this bone growing very quickly from a young age, which was the case for Isla. It tends to move from the head downwards. So the upper body is impacted in the younger years, and then from adolescence, generally the lower body. And for children born with FOP, it's very easy to recognise the condition. Pretty much all cases, children are born with what looks like congenital bunions. And actually for Isla, she was diagnosed with congenital bunions. So her big toes turn inwards. And, had we had the newborn screenings and they'd looked at her toes, they would have known straight away that it was FOP. And the next thing, which it often is why people go to the doctors, is not the toes, is actually because they get soft tissue swellings. So in Isla's case, they developed when she was a few months old and started in her head. And it became rather large, so probably the size of almost a tangerine in the back of her head, so a big swelling, wow. Which obviously is very alarming. And they could be anywhere. So the worst thing, I don't know what's the worst thing about FOP, but one is the fact that what happens, as I say, is that bone grows. So if it's in your head, it doesn't impact your mobility. It looks terrible. These flare-ups look absolutely terrible, but it will leave the bone behind. It doesn't impact your mobility. Obviously, if that happens on your joints, And in Isla's case, it happened on her neck quite early on. She lost ability to turn her head. And then on her shoulders, lost ability to move her shoulders. And I think a lot of people think, well, why don't you just operate and remove it? So the really cruel thing about FOP is it gets worse through any kind of injury, and actually also viruses can cause what they call flare-ups, which is where you get these swellings before it leaves the bone. Now it can happen spontaneously. So for some, I think that Isla's head flares started because she had a forceps delivery, and that caused her initial flare-ups. And the back flare-ups are horrific, to be honest. They move around the back, different swellings come up, come down, leaving bone in their wake. And for Isla, that's meant she now has very, very severe scoliosis. So that is curvature of the spine, if you don't know. And it's where, for her, in her case, where the bone is pulling her sideways. And so, that's been, really challenging. And I mean, FOP it's incredible, and it gets, for a very rare disease, it gets quite a bit of attention because obviously anything where one organ is changing to another, I mean, there is nothing like, it's just so incredible that the body can do that. And, obviously we can learn a lot from that as well for other conditions. And so there is this kind of, hope that by getting treatment or cure for FOP can impact and help many others with other conditions. Because imagine if you can grow bone.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So with this, so the soft tissue doesn't gradually turn to bone, like ongoing. It's when it has one of these flare-ups. Is that or is it ongoing?
So generally it will be a flare-up. So certainly for children, what you tend to see is you get this soft tissue swelling, and it might leave bone, it might not. Sometimes maybe the bone is so small that it doesn't impact the mobility, or it might impact the mobility a bit. For some people, actually, they can regain some mobility sometimes. So one of the worst places to lose mobility is obviously your jaw. So if your jaw locks, it impacts your life massively and becomes actually quite dangerous. And some people do regain some of that mobility over time, but not necessarily. And the other thing that tends to happen when people get older is kind of stealth flares, we call them, where you don't necessarily get the swelling, but you do get the bone. And so Isla's not had any necessarily visible flare-ups recently, although she is on steroids at the moment for a knee, what we think is a knee flare-up. But it's hard to see exactly how much if it is actually a flare-up in terms of swelling right now.
Wow. I was literally going, this is just, and then you talk about the jaw, and I'm like, actually, there are so many bits that move on your body that you take for granted and don't even think about losing that mobility. And immediately, mobility, you're thinking, moving, holding, gripping.
Yeah.
There's a lot more.
And it can change overnight. So you can go to bed and then you can never move that joint again. And it can lock in any which way. So for Isla, her elbows are lock bent, which is good in some ways. So they're fixed. Her arms are fixed to her body and her and bent. One arm she can touch her chin, bottom of her face, but obviously that means she can't brush her hair. She can eat with knives and forks, and going to the toilets. Obviously she can't do. Putting clothes on, can't do. And not only she can't do, it's actually even hard for me to do because of the way she's so restricted. Yeah.
Wow. And I suppose again, my head's just so many questions entering my head I suppose if she fell over and lands on that arm, it's going to move it, which is then probably going to break bones. And then that's going to reset with probably more.
Well, it's actually worse than that. So for Isla, her arms are locked when she was about 2, 3. By 3, both her arms are locked. So imagine your arms are locked, bent, and to your sides. You fall over, you can't catch your fall. We all put our arms out, don't we? Catch our fall. You can't do that. So what do you hit?
My head.
Your head. So she's had some incredibly nasty falls, which have been nothing, literally just tripped over nothing. And so, she used to wear a hat and headbands when she was little. We literally had a padded room for her when she was learning to walk. And it was very, very stressful. Those years were really hard, actually, because just every time she falls, you'd be in the playground and she'd fall over, and I was the mum screaming, but obviously no one else in the playground knew why I was screaming. They're just thinking, "What? Neurotic mother."
Just stick a Band-Aid on it. What's the worst that can happen? A wet blue towel that will fix it.
Yeah. Whilst I'm thinking her life could change forever. So we have had. She's been ambulanced from from school before through a head injury, that is one of the things that, now she's at secondary school and she's considerably smaller than her peers. And so, there's big bags, there's, lots of people moving around the school. And, so she is in a wheelchair most of the time, but it means that she's not as independent as we'd like her to be. But, walking is becoming harder for her anyway.
Wow. But my first question was really because I knew from previously that she is now at secondary school.
Yes.
So, she's 12, isn't she?
She's 12 in year 7, yeah.
That's a lot of challenge.
It is, yeah, a lot of challenge. And, obviously she has an EHCP and she was supported by the same one-on-one from nursery all the way through to year 6. So, and then obviously this not only a step to secondary school, but a new one-on-one, so a new relationship to build. And secondary school, I knew it was different, but it's not until your child goes to secondary school, I think, that you just go, okay, this is not just a little bit different, this is
I think you forget how different it was. And I remember my kids going to secondary school, I'm kind of having flashbacks of actually that was the things you're told when you go to it's the stories you're told about what's going to happen to you at secondary school. Everyone just enjoys just teasing the kids from junior schools and primary schools going, this is going to happen to you, you're going to hate. And it's the fear, and it's so big, and you go from the kind of the top of the school
absolutely
to this tiny little thing.
Yeah.
It's such a big school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Isla was definitely ready for a change. And I think like a lot of kids, by the time they get to year 6, it's kind of like those last few months drag, and it's like they're ready for something new and a step up. But I think, for any child is a big, big jump. And we obviously did a lot of preparation. And the school were great in supporting Isla in, doing transition days and trying to, get her kind of familiar with the surroundings and making sure that we kind of thought through what her day would look like. But the one thing I hadn't appreciated, and I went to a relatively small secondary school, is that every single class you're moving. So you were having to go to potentially in one day, I don't know, maybe 8 different places. So that's 8 different places where she needs the chair set up. She needs the access. She needs her one-on-one there supporting her. She needs the toilet, access to a disabled toilet. All of these things have got to be thought through. And there's also classes she can't do. So PE she can't do. So where does she go then? And, what does she do instead? How do they make her feel included? And, and actually breaks and lunchtime have been the hardest part.
Yeah, because when you had 8, I went, no, don't we have like 4, 5 or 6 lessons? But you're going, I'm just thinking of the lessons. There's a tutor set time.
Yeah,
there's lunchtime.
Exactly.
There's the break
Absolutely.
time. Actually, it's not just a lesson. There's a lot more to think about.
Yeah.
And that bit there, which is really important, it's not what do they do with, it's how does she feel included? And that's the thing, is you can say, well, they do PE, you can just go over there. That's a bit, how do they do that? How do they make her feel included in PE or during PE time?
So it's something we're working on. We're not there yet.
I was hoping for a lovely answer then.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge, I guess, isn't it?
It is, because even she can't get changed.
No.
I struggle to get her changed. So to ask her one-on-one to try and get her changed, it would take up, a lot of the class in itself. So there is that kind of practical side of things. The other thing is, they rotate what sports they're doing. I don't know. For example, they could be doing netball and football this term. Well, she can't move her arms. She can't walk or run. And if she gets hurt...
I was about to say, you probably don't want her on the pitch or court or wherever it is in case she gets hit by a ball or another person.
Yeah, so what would generally happen at her old school is that there was another child in her class who was in a wheelchair, and they would tend to go off and do ball games or do their own version of PE. Or at sports day, Isla would be the one taking the photos. So there would be ways that they would include her. It wasn't perfect, but at least she was part of those.
And it is, I suppose, for them, they did have 7 years of learning how to support her. So you literally went from the ultimate, we get your daughter, to...
Yeah, I mean...
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's just different. I think the thing is PE is different. So PE in, primary school is in a hall and you might be rolling balls or it's not necessarily, I know some schools do netball and football dedicated PE sessions, but it's less likely to always be that. It is. So I think that is the difference. And obviously the children are only getting bigger and bigger. And so, so I think what we're going to end up doing is Isla's going to have someone going in and doing PE with her. So that's what they're exploring at the moment. She was also doing what her one-on-one at the time called ME. So mental education.
I was trying to work out the acronym. I'm going.
What you think. And so they were playing chess. So at least she was doing something in that time, and
Because I was thinking the difference a lot of time between primary and secondary is, I would say the PE is a lot more competitive at secondary. So whether you're playing badminton, cross country, football, generally it's a team with a winner or a person winning, which generally means it could be rougher. There's a lot more going on. But at the same time, that is actually that competitive, that thinking. There is stuff to sport strategy that actually, and chess is a great way. And ME, makes sense actually. Because it is, if you can't play football, you're not watching the game, but actually you're looking at your chess pieces and you've got that same strategy.
Yes.
You are still thinking about that, and those things you can take into everyday life.
And it is the social thing for Isla. I think my worry quite often is around her being able to be with peers. So getting that time with other, children that she just gets on with, making friendships, and, she's not in the breaks or the lunch times with them. So, trying to find that time is tricky.
I was thinking at some point, because again, it's always great to be with your peers, but if there is a situation where actually you are with your peers and you're seen as letting them down through no fault of your own, but they didn't win and you're on, actually there are times when actually maybe inclusion, it's complicated.
It is complicated.
Because you want them to feel that belonging, but if you're making it competitive,
and you know what, constantly I'm fighting this battle of how do I make Isla feel included? How do I make sure that she is getting the benefits? It could be, for example, over half term, wanting to meet up with a friend and, go to Costa and have a coffee, milkshake, whatever they have together. And I'm having to go, okay, she can do it. I can leave her, trying to find ways for her to be like a normal 12-year-old and do those normal things is tricky.
Because it is, for lots of us parents, letting your child grow up is hard enough as it is. And you see parents go, I'm not letting them do that. And you're thinking, well, I've let them. Am I bad? Am I? But it's like you need to let them. And for most children, you want to let them make those mistakes while you're there to pick up the pieces and know, okay, I went too far, or I shouldn't have done that, and move on and learn from that. You're in a much more, it's a much more difficult, and again, we talked about you, but she was obviously completely 100% aware of her condition. It's not like she's going, oh, it'll be fine, and do something. She completely understands her condition. She knows. But at the same time, that ability to, again, if you go back to you talking about your child Isla falling over in the playground and you going and realizing if she's at Costa Coffee and someone just knocks into her, the implication,
Absolutely,
she'll literally be going, this is knowing is not good, but everyone's going, I just bumped into you. What's the word? What? Come on. Wow.
Yeah, my life is a risk assessment. I literally spend my life going, okay, if this happens, and then I have to do the risk assessment in my head and then go, okay, I've just got to suck it up. And she might not do everything she wants to do, but I will try my darnest for her to do it in some shape or form and to be part of everything that she can. And, certainly it was easier when she was younger. She was more mobile. In some ways, she did everything. She did, she still does horse riding, but she did gymnastics. She did swimming. She did brownies. She did pretty much everything. And I made sure that there was the support there, that she could be as included as possible. And as she's getting a bit older, as I say, and the mobility challenges are getting a bit greater, it's getting harder, and her frustration is definitely increasing. And I get it, and I quite often say to her, I get it, like it's
life sucks.
Tough, like it really is. And she wears a breathing machine, and so she has a BiPAP at night, because one thing which is one of the most devastating, well, again, I'm not sure what is, but so most people with FOP sadly die of respiratory failure. So you imagine bone grows in your rib cage and constricts the function of your vital organs. In Isla's case, her lung capacity is around 30%. So she relies on a BiPAP breathing machine and oxygen at night. And she needs that. Like it's definitely getting worse, and she's realizing that. And obviously, if you get a virus, flu, COVID, anything like that, as we know, FOP gets worse. But also, if you're starting with only a baseline of around 30% lung function, and a lot of ways that you would manage it. So, with children with restrictive other lung conditions. So obviously one of the things they do is a lot of manipulation.
Yep.
That's obviously out of the window. Yeah. That's gonna make things 100 times worse. So yeah, it's always having to be think of new ways of doing things, and balancing risk and enjoying life and making the most of each day, because that's what really matters.
Just this. I mean, how far ahead does she look? So really kind of, is she thinking about GCSEs? Is she thinking about careers? Is she not that optimistic? Because that, in her head, she's got, this is me, it's kind of going to go downhill, but at the same time, it's got all the things she wants to do.
Well, absolutely. And, so she should. We all deserve to dream and to have aspirations in our life. And I don't in any way stop having those. And, she talks about the fact that she wants to move out and live in a black and white house, and her sister's going to help her, and yeah, she has that kind of vision. She would love to be a makeup artist. She's really into kind of makeup and hair, and she actually does a lot of choreographing dances from my other daughter as well. She loves that. So she's really resilient, and I'm so proud of her and her. She does live life to the max, but the questions are coming. The questions, she does go to bed and ask me those tough questions, and why do I need this? Why is my breathing hard? Why do I need more sleep? The whys are coming thick and fast now, and when did I have a boyfriend, and what was he like, and all of those things which are just very normal for a 12-year-old as well. So I try and keep talking to her, and she has therapists supporting her. So she has music therapy, a lovely lady that's been supporting her for some time now, who comes into school every fortnight. And so that's really helpful to her. And we have a nanny that comes in for a few hours a week, and she's training as a play therapist. So she's incredible with Isla, and Isla really looks up to her, and they have lots of fun together. So, so...
No regrets.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And, and the one thing, going back to the whole, the risk assessments and the fear of, your Isla falling and hurting herself, and the repercussions of that. And, so, for example, on Saturday, we found her in the living room with her sister trying to do one of those where she was lying down and getting Hetty her sister, to balance on her. I know. I mean, like, what the heck are you doing?
Oh.
Yeah. So you can imagine myself and my husband were like, Isla, stop now. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, I'm torn because, like, they're having so much fun. But the one thing, going back to what I was about to say, was the one thing that everyone with FOP that I've met, and I've been very fortunate that although her condition's very rare, I've met a lot of people and got to know through online communities a lot of adults with FOP. And I think the one resounding thing they will say is, let her be a child. If she wants to do something, let her do it, because there'll be a time she can't. So don't stop her. I mean, there are some, like, that was a bit over the top, but, so I always have, and I remember, she was very fortunate. She was diagnosed very young. They saw the toes, and, I saw the toes, and that's another story of how she got diagnosed. But she was diagnosed very young. She saw the world's top expert, Dr. Kaplan, by the time she was 5 months old. So he's an American doctor who was luckily in the UK for an FOP conference. And I just remember him saying, let her be a child. Don't wrap her in cotton wool. Just let her be a child, because FOP will do its thing. And yes, obviously injury will make it worse, viruses will make it worse, but she needs to live her life. Cognitively, she's as smart as a button. So that's really what I've kind of lived by, and I hope that, Isla does live, the best life for her. That
Yes.
Yeah.
First podcast I've ever cried on. Thank you.
Oh, should I be proud? No, but
it's that sort of thing. Is and apparently autistic people don't have empathy. It was just, wow. Again, I look at my children. My daughters are older than yours, and all the things they've done, all the things, and just thinking that being taken away from someone.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And it is, FOP has its own barriers. She's going to be fully aware of them. She knows the trajectory. And if you kind of wrap her up she'll then push past. It's a real balancing of her knowing her own barriers, you being that person who's going, yeah, but like, I'm not going to drop my sister. She's on my feet. She's up there. I'm not going to drop her. There's always that it'll be fine mentality. You always think everything's going to be fine, and then things don't happen. And there is that kind of, as that adult, you've got to be there. But she would have been having a whale of a time doing that. She would have been having the best time.
Yeah.
And it is, everything you do is just going to be stopping fun. And that's a really hard, because at the end of the day, you want her to go to bed with memories and smiles.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is a lot of grief, because you're grieving. When she was first diagnosed, I was grieving the fact that she wasn't going to have the life that I thought that, my first child, and, you kind of do have this vision of what, is going to happen and how they're going to go through life, and lots of milestones that I kind of thought, oh gosh, is that going to happen? And, at that point, we really didn't know what her path was going to be with her diagnosis and how it was going to kind of map out. And, but I don't have any regrets. I don't at any point think, I wish I hadn't taken her there. I wish she hadn't had that opportunity. And I have to live with, the consequences if she does get hurt. And obviously I do struggle with that. And I find it quite a lonely place in the fact that, no one really gets it other than our FOP families.
No one I've ever come across have ever risk assessed going to brownies. Not brownies as a whole, but every single evening. What are we doing this? Ooh. Literally, you are having to, where we just turn up and it'll be fine. Every single thing you're risk assessing, but it's not a case of, oh, we won't do that. Actually, there's a real big bonus for her doing it. She'll get so much out of it. So you want her to do everything.
Yeah.
But you've just got to go, maybe not that one. She really wants to. Her peers are doing it. It's where all her friends are going. Yeah. You're having to really back on every single thing you do.
Yeah. So they've just announced this week that they've got the Year 7 residential. And they're going to a coastal town for, I think, 5 days. And, obviously she won't be able to go on her own. I'll need to be there, and she'll need to stay somewhere else. And that's a conversation for this week in terms of...
Did they discuss it with that? We're doing this, is what we do every year.
Yes. So they did call me and they did say there's not many activities that she'll be able to do, but the one that she probably can be part of is fishing. So she's never gone fishing before.
Not on my to-do list, but...
yeah, I'm not sure she'd be up for it.
But it is on my wife's... I want to give it a go.
Yeah. So, again, I'm not sure how she'd swing fishing rod, but...
But again, it's one of those things of not going is absolutely excluded.
Yeah.
Being there, and it's a real tough one. And just being there and even just being part of the conversations about what they've done and enjoying the stories of the day can be more inclusive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so what people sometimes don't realise with children in wheelchairs is that it's very hard for them to become part of the conversation. So give a lunch hall and you've got your children sitting around the table. A child comes up to the end of the table in a wheelchair. They need people to engage with them more readily. It's hard for them to get their voice heard. And for Isla, that becomes even more challenging because she hasn't got no neck mobility. So if someone's behind her, she can't obviously see. She can't turn her head to someone to engage in conversation, so they recognise that they're talking to her. So quite often she'll feel like she's being ignored. And she is quiet anyway, which doesn't help. She doesn't project her voice necessarily. But that is one thing I find hard. I remember her party earlier, end of last year, sorry. And she had some really good friends there, and they've now got phones. They're in year 7 and they've got phones. And one of them turned around to the others and said, "Oh, let's get a selfie." So they get the phone out and they take a selfie. But because Isla can't get herself in a position to be in the selfie, she's not in the selfie. But they don't think,
Yes.
And as a parent, it's really hard to watch. I'm not sure in that instance how aware Isla was. She probably was.
It's one of those things, I think, again, for my daughter's autistic, completely different, but her awareness of what's going on, her seeing those things, and my daughter's very aware, and it's I think with the challenges through secondary school is every single girl was finding their identity, finding who they are, playing with all of that, wanting to be in that attention. So none of that was it. It's never malicious. It's never intentional. And I wouldn't even say it's selfish, but they are generally thinking, I want to be seen with my friends. I want this. I want those endorphins. I want that dopamine hit from people liking my photo. That's what they want. And they forget where they are. There's no blame. It's everyone growing up does the same.
Yeah.
We all do it. We all kind of, when we were young, doing that photo, and it takes extra. And at that point, you don't have that extra to go, we need to get everyone in this.
Yeah.
You're not.
And to be that kid that stands up and says something, I think that's the thing. I think, for example, in that friendship group, there was one friend who's been friends with Isla since, she was in infant school, and Isla at that point wasn't in the chair. Her mobility was much, much more, she knows her through the years. And I definitely think she clocked it and thought, but then how do you voice that?
Because again, if you voice, it's one of the things, you voice it, you get left out. It's just, but again, it's one of the times you may not get left out, but that's your worry. And it's a really, really hard time. And as an adult, there's a single thing you can do, because if you interfere, that's worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working out. Okay, so and again, for Isla, it's even more complicated. I can give my tip to my daughter, do this, get yourself. No.
Exactly. Position yourself. Yeah.
And I was even thinking, when you're talking about her sitting at the end of the table, every other person on that table generally can choose where they sit. They can, she sat there, I'm going to sit next to her. Isla has to sit at the end with whoever's at the end.
Yeah. And she can't reach things. So again, remember, her elbows are locked at her body. So, for example, if there's chips on the table, she won't be able to reach over to get them. And I think because she's in a wheelchair, people assume that which you would, is that her legs are no good, but her upper body's fine. But actually, in Isla's case, she has pretty much zero upper body mobility. Hand movement's fine. But her legs are okay. Well, they're not so much in a minute, but up until quite recently, her legs were okay. She could walk short distances. And so then they see her out the chair, and then they'd be like, I don't get it. So it's, I remember when her first, her friend from school came round from her secondary school, and she was like, what, you can walk up the stairs? She was like, yeah.
But that's it, yeah. I can walk up and down the stairs once, twice, but I can't last a whole day.
Yeah.
It's the stamina. It's that energy.
She couldn't really walk. I think well, now she couldn't, but like, say a few months ago, she could probably walk about 25, 30 meters. But it's more her scoliosis that's stopping her.
But that probably has an energy impact.
Oh, yeah.
So if she does do that, actually, there was a cost.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Her oxygen levels go down, so she becomes nauseous, and she needs to rest her body.
So at secondary school, and it's lunchtime, does she get lunch with everyone else?
So
give as much or as little detail as you want.
Yeah, sure. So her secondary school is, I suppose, maybe quite unique in the state system, that it has, although I think maybe become more of a thing in the future, that it has a dedicated centre in the middle of the school, which is called the LSE, and that supports quite a few children, but dedicated support, I think, for 6 children across the whole school, which is a big school. And Isla is one of them. So there are some other children in wheelchairs who have mobility challenges, but anyone with a SEND, or certainly within EHCP, will probably have support from that centre in some shape. For Isla, it means she has kind of dedicated support. So she will go there for her breaks. She will go there when the others are doing PE. She will have her lunch there. It's next to the lunch hall, so she can bring her lunch through, choose her lunch, come in. All her breaks, she finishes classes early. So she'll always leave the lesson a bit early or late, depends, but I think generally early, giving her time to get to the next class before the crowds. And if she needs a toilet, they've got dedicated disabled toilets in that centre. And there's always someone there that can support her. So as she gets older, potentially she can go around the school without her one-on-one. She could always go back there and there would be someone to support her.
Yeah, it's again, you're talking about, and again, although we're talking about FOP, is we're in this mobility zone. We're in all these areas where, as you said, in the lessons, but transitioning on her own. Not with her friends. She's at a break time.
Always with an adult. It's not just on your own. It's with an adult. And that is that's actually almost a, it's a barrier in itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when it's like always supporting needs in that transition, but actually not having that conversation as you're getting to that next class. It's kind of not being in that conversation, not helping.
Kids don't, and I understand, kids don't feel like they can approach her, because imagine she's in a chair, she can't really move herself, and she's got an adult always with her.
Who's always going to say whatever you said to another adult if you said something you shouldn't have said.
Yeah.
Let's just say it that way.
Yeah, and, I think sometimes I do feel that there are kids that do want to engage with her, and, it becomes really difficult. And so what and the school, do try and I think support this, is try and get some of those friends from her class for her, Isla, to be able to pick some that go into the LSC with her for breaks occasionally. So that's nice. And actually, she's made some good friendships within the LSC, not necessarily in her year, but yeah, so that has been helpful.
So phones are bad, screen time bad. Does she have a phone?
She does have a phone. And the policy, quite rightly at school, is it's locked up. She doesn't use it during the school day. She also does have an iPad. So the iPad is provided by school. So she does have that throughout the day. So that's to support her learning. Her learning's really challenging. So again, she can't write very long. So she could write maybe a paragraph and she'd be fine. But she hasn't got the speed because, again, she's got all this restriction. She's, bent over. So again, she needs the board at the right position. She needs the table at the right position. She needs the chair supporting her in the right way. All of those variables need to be correct for her to even be able to write a little bit. And so actually educationally, a big challenge has been that she's reliant on her one-on-one to transcribe for her, but she's not learning as a result. Because by writing something down, it is helping your learning. You're having to focus on what you're doing. And, I think we'd all do the same. You end up, if you're not doing that, then...
But also, I'm a digital person, I would say. I think you learn in lots of different ways. But in reality, her cognitive load isn't concentrating on the pencil and the writing.
Yes.
She's literally saying, right, I'm saying this. Have you written that yet? Are you waiting for my next bit? You're concentrating.
Well, the teacher's saying what to write, though.
But if she's scribing, is that
Yes.
one-on-one scribe? So if she's kind of, right, I need to write the answers down, she's got to think about it all, but then she's got to pass that information to someone else to write, and that's a cognitive load.
Yes.
That actually you're going, right, so I want to say this, okay, I've got to structure it all with the correct pauses, but wait for her to write what I've said. And that just takes concentration, where you end up not really thinking too much because you're concentrating on how it's recorded.
Mm.
Whereas handwriting, you just, once you've got it, it's kind of, you don't even look, it just happens. Whereas that is kind of a constant cognitive load.
Yeah. And also, Isla doesn't like being the centre of attention. Like any probably 12-year-old, they're not, you kind of want to be, so being able to speak up is not something. So we did, obviously we have explored, and we are still exploring the option of having, other resources where she can transcribe, and it is digitally recorded. So that is one thing. We're also looking at, is it Docs Plus, I think it's called, which is some software that can support her learning, which has the curriculum, I think, preloaded, where she doesn't have to type so much. It kind of, I think, helps her.
Yeah.
So we are looking at other ways of her supporting her learning, but again, I've seen a drop off in her learning for sure from junior to secondary.
Again, it's in junior, you've got a class who will know you, you're with them constantly, they get you, they're doing your thing. It's fine, it's Isla, she's my friend, it's great.
And you learn in different ways, I think.
Whereas I think there's a lot more silence in secondary school. So if there's silence and you've got someone scribing, you're literally the only voice.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone, it's that almost is exclusive. It's almost like if it's really, and again, when we talk about inclusion, a lot of the definitions I come across are about what the staff are doing. And my favourite definition is, does Isla feel included? If she doesn't, it's not. That to me, it's not what you're doing, because you could be doing something that you think is really important, but if it's not making any difference to Isla, it's kind of wasted. Mm. What would make a difference to Isla? What makes her feel included? That is the definition of inclusion we should be going for. Sometimes that will raise even bigger challenges when you go, what would work for you? And she starts saying this, and you're like, okay, I see. But that's inclusion, is finding from them, letting Isla advocate for herself.
100%. Yeah. And I think, the best one-on-ones are the ones where you don't even know they're there. The Isla's voice is the voice that's heard, and it's so difficult for her to feel not only included but valued.
Yep. There's just, as soon as you bolt on that adult, there are just so many things. No one's going to talk to her about boys or girls or anything because there's an adult listening. Mm. So many conversations, all the inappropriate conversations you have as teenagers that you learn how not to and what to say and things like that probably aren't happening with her at school because of that adult. And but the same side, going back to your risk assessment, where you risk assess everything, would it be safe for her not to be with the adult as much? What would be the situation? How could that be managed?
So it's not then about the safety, though. It's the practical element of, so who's going to take her bag? Who's going to open the door? Yeah?
And you can't
Who's going to give her a pencil? Who's going to set her up with a slant board?
And you can't just say, someone go, I'll do that. That's a lovely intent, but it's not a nice thing for Isla. This is a requirement.
And it's not fair on the child supporting her. I absolutely want her to have peer support. That is a no-brainer. But it is tricky to get the balance.
Is. So although we've been talking about FOP and Isla, we've hit on a lot of challenges for anyone in a wheelchair, anyone with reduced mobility, in lots of different ways. Although we have focused on FOP and Isla and her challenges, actually her challenges aren't unique. Some are unique to her condition, but a lot of them, there are probably lots of children in this situation in lots of schools, and actually trying to find the right way of meeting those challenges where that child feels included, not just sitting on the sidelines, that feels they have a voice, feels they feel all those sorts of things. And it's in this weird zone of it's feel, everything was I feel, she feels, he feels. And some people would say, oh, that's not real, or whatever. But in reality, if you imagine all those sorts of things, it starts with how that person feels. Everything else comes after that. And everything you're doing your risk assessment, the biggest factor is how will she feel if I do? How do I feel if she doesn't? It's the feeling is the biggest driver on all of this. It's that bit, if she doesn't feel included, will she want to go to school? There's just so many challenges around how she feels. And we were talking about something this morning when you came in about her attendance this week. And so because she has her CPAP?
BiPAP. Yeah, similar. Yeah.
What's a BiPAP?
Yeah. Just works slightly differently, that's all.
But she has a mask and she had a blister on her face. So she went to school and the school thought it was
impetigo.
And that's very contagious.
Yes.
So she wasn't allowed in. So she contacted you and told you she's got this, and you went, no, it's a blister because of this. And you weren't listened to, and she was not allowed in without a doctor's certificate. So you had to go to make a doctor's appointment for a doctor to look at you as if you were bonkers, because there's nothing wrong with her. And you're going, I know, but and he wrote a letter, and it's one of those lack of understanding, lack of awareness. And it's, again, when we talk about inclusion in schools, it's not a teacher thing. It's not a TA thing. It's an entire school. That's where inclusion is, a whole ethos for that school and that understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, at the end of the day, you can't expect kids to just naturally have that. They need a school that is supporting that and supporting those conversations and that openness. And I spend a lot of time, as you can imagine, in appointments, hospital. We're under 5 different hospitals, so we are at appointments a lot. So yes, I did not need that trip to the GP this week, or her missing another day and a half of school, day of school.
I'm going to end it there. Anything, as we come to anything you want to say before we wrap it up?
So just going back to FOP Awareness Day, so where we started. So yeah, as I say, FOP is super rare and it can be easily diagnosed through those big toe malformation. So the kind of bent in big toe. And then secondly, the flare up. So the swellings that kind of come out of nowhere and can look like a tumour. So yes, I do want to just kind of bring back the conversation to that as we conclude today. And just to say thank you for having me. And in some ways I feel a bit bad that Isla's not here to have her voice. But hopefully I've done her justice and, will continue to, live, for her to live her best life and campaigning for a treatment for FOP in the future.
Again, just listening to all the things she's been part of, all the things she's been able to access, all the things she's done. From that point of view, she's having a normal. She's ticking all the things that every child you expect them to do. You're ticking all those boxes. And again, talking about being a makeup, all that sort of thing. She just sounds like a typical teenager. It sounds like she's just having an absolute whale of a time. And I think that's the bit we want for all our children.
Yeah.
it would have been lovely to meet Isla. So thank you for coming on the show today. You've given me some links about FOP and FOP Friends. I'll put those in the show notes, and also in your Instagram as well. So share that as well. And as always, you'll find the show notes wherever you listen to the podcast or on the Sendcast website. Thank you for listening to the show. Please share the podcast with everyone you know. We are on all the various social media platforms as the Sendcast, so tag us and let everyone know about the podcast. And at B Squared, we have a range of assessment products to help schools show progress for all pupils. And if you're a school in England confused by the engagement model, not sure about the pre-key stage standards, or you can't show progress more than just below, or anything else around assessment, please get in contact. And you'll find a link to the website and to book a meeting with me in the show notes. But thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sendcast. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.